Welcome to this special night that we have with Joel Salatin, who's happened to be in town, and he was kindly able to give us some of his time out of his journey. On the website and everything like that, we did talk about it from 7 to 9, but that was because I wasn't able to talk directly to Joel. And he's just, of course, flew in today, so he's a little tired. So we're going to cut it down to about 8 o'clock, 8:15, somewhere in there. So it was about half an hour talking, half an hour questions, and then whatever for signing books and, you know.
Photos.
Pardon?
Photos.
Photos opportunity, yes! He's a little camera shy, I think, you know, so. Yeah, so welcome to this. This is Earth's General Store. I was fortunately able to put this on in fairly short notice. The book publisher asked us to be the bookseller at this other event, and I asked, you know, was able to get Joel Salatin and see whether he would do an opportunity talk with our community here in Edmonton. And Joel said, yes, he's into that, and I very much appreciate that a man of his stature, reputation, was able to say yes. I will come out and do this. So I very much appreciate it, and we're all very much indebted to you, Joel, for what you're doing, not only right here tonight, but also what you're doing with your life, with your farm, and spreading the word, the gospel of farming smart, you know, instead of stupidly. So I'm going to invite Joel to come up here and talk to you.
Well, thank you. It's a delight to be with you. Can everybody hear me okay? It sounds good to me. It's all right. You got it. All right. All right. So, yeah, this is a totally spontaneous deal. I didn't have a whole lot just settled up for tonight. I wasn't sure what all the books that were going to be here and all that. So, what I'd like to do is just share a little bit of some of the things that are kind of near and dear, what I think are helpful to people. The first one I'd like to delve into is this notion that this can't feed the world. You know, the two most common questions I get everywhere on the planet that I travel and speak is, A, is this not really a food elitism, high-priced, local, you know, high-quality food? It's an exclusive, you know, it's a country club food deal. And the second is, you know, can it really feed the world? And we have to answer those two questions, because if we don't have an answer for those two questions, I'm assuming that everybody here tonight is probably, you know, into this, unless there's a Monsanto bowl or something. So I'm just going to assume that we're you know, we're kind of friends tonight.
I'm sure Monsanto's familiar with the recipe.
I'm sure Monsanto's familiar with it. Yeah, they are, of course, are trying to paint themselves as the ultimate sustainability. That people like me are trying to make people hungry and starve to death because there's just not enough food to go around and all this stuff. So let's deal with that for a little bit. You know, the world, for all of our technology and refrigeration and plastic bags and vacuum sealing and transportation, all that, has never thrown away more human edible food than we do right now today. Planet-wide, we are losing roughly 50% of all the human edible food in the world. So whenever you hear somebody say, oh, we got too many people, you know, we can't feed them, realize that if we just quit throwing away human edible food, the world's population could double tomorrow, and there'd be enough to go around. Nobody goes hungry because there's not enough food. Well, what is it with it? Why are we throwing so much away? Well, first of all, we have in the developed world incredible snootiness about what is edible. If there's one spot on a banana, one spot on an orange, one spot on an apple, it's thrown away. Just go to the back door of any produce section, and I mean there are baskets and baskets of stuff being thrown away that are perfectly edible. There are oopses Big oopses. I got a call the other day from a lady in North Carolina. She lives next to a large yogurt processing operation. And every day they dump tractor trailer loads of milk down the drain because they either went, too long, sell by, process by. They might have found some antibiotic residue in it. It might be a little bit too much pus in it. Somatic cell count is what the milk people. It's a measure of pus, right? And so the U.S. level of pus is like 10 times the amount allowed in Europe. But anyway, we can still drink it anyway. As long as you irradiate it, and procrastinate it, prostitute it, adulterate it, fumigate it, chlorinate it, heat it to death, ultra pasteurize it, then it's okay. Because we live in a time where people equate sterile with safe. Well, we're not sterile. Each of us has, believe it or not, 3 trillion bacteria inside. And they're having hockey leagues and, school board meetings and elections and whatever going on down there. And, one of my favorite things about in the garden in the early spring when the asparagus starts coming up, it's one of the first, perennials to come up in the garden, right? Take my knife and I cut it off a little bit below the soil. Don't wash it, don't clean it, just let that soil dangle on there. So I eat that with a little bit of dirt, and the asparagus is just fresh and crisp. And I can just imagine, every double handful of healthy soil has like 20 billion bacteria and protozoa and nematodes and stuff in it. So I can just imagine them on the asparagus, right? I've eaten it, swallowed, and it goes down into all these bacteria, 3 trillion inside of me, and they look at each other and they're like long lost cousin. It's so good to see you, and they have all these reunions down there. Massachusetts Institute of Technology actually now says that we are 85% non-human and only 15% human. If you could take the bacterial cloud around us and in us and on us, we'd all look like Pigpen in the Peanuts comic strip. You've got this aura, so your breath and all this, is hanging. Your haze is around you and it's intersecting with you, and so we're all commiserating with these hazes of bacteria. It's really quite amazing. We're not sterile. But we live in this age in which there is so much fear of food and paranoia about food that the CFIA, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like the U.S. duh in the U.S. and the F duh. They equate safety with sterile. But we're not sterile. The world's not sterile. The whole idea here is to create a system in which the good guys beat the bad guys. But it's a throwback to our dear Frenchman friend Louis Pasteur, who discovered germs and developed the germ theory. He saw these little wiggly things in the microscope. He says, "Those are bad guys. We got to kill them before they kill us." Well, there was a contemporary of his, not nearly as handsome, not nearly as glib. He didn't do as good a Good Morning Canada TV show, right? And his name was Antoine Beauchamp. And he said, and he was a contemporary, because they lived at the same time. Okay, I don't want to run ahead of you here. And he said to Pasteur, he said, "Oh, comptoir." He said, yes, there are these little wiggly germs, but what allows them to get to me is a breakdown in the immunological terrain. And he developed the terrain theory. That it's not about annihilating the bad guys, it's how do we create a habitat in which the good guys beat the bad guys. There actually are way more good guys than bad guys. So how do we create an environment? So let me ask you, if we set up a committee here this evening and said, our goal here this evening is going to have a farm and food system that is pathogenic. I mean, we want disease, we want sickness, we want pathogens, and we want just a despicable system. So we're gonna pick 5 of us here, and we're gonna go out here and form a focus group, committee. Everything's decided about focus group, right? And we're gonna design a food and farming system in which pathogens can proliferate. And, take a month and then bring back your recommendations. Well, what would that look like? Well, first of all, what we would do is we would make sure that farms only produce one thing. I mean, we don't want the pathogens to be confused with different kinds of hosts, right? I mean, confused pathogens are not very efficient. So we want to produce only one thing. So we're going to produce just canola here, and wheat over here, and beef cows over here, and apple trees over here. All right, we're going to produce just one thing, and then we're going to put it so close together in the name of efficiency that the pathogens don't have to work to stay alive between hosts. I mean, if we cram all the chickens in, one house, or all the pigs in one house, or make a whole section of canola or a whole section of wheat and cram it all together, or grapes or whatever, then the pathogens don't have to work very hard going from host to host. Because remember, when we talk about these pathogens, we're talking about little itty bitty bacteria. I mean, they're little critters that are kind of slogging along in boots, in the swampy, wet world of our insides and our outsides and all that. All right. And so they're sloshing along here, in this kind of swamp. And so if we have these what we're growing real close together, they don't have to work very hard to find mates and procreate and stay alive and all that between hosts. Then, let's see, what would be another thing that we would do? Oh, we would, sunshine is a real sanitizer. So let's put all the animals in a confinement house, where they can't get fresh air and sunshine, so they can breathe in fecal particulate, from their manure and their dust, and so the fecal particulate can come in like sandpaper and abrade their tender mucous membranes and create lesions between the cilia and nice bloody abscesses on their respiratory tracts, so that the fecal particulate can go right in their bloodstream. That's cool. And then, look, we don't want them to have an immune system, so we'll vaccinate them and feed them subtherapeutic antibiotics all the time to make their immune system very lethargic and unused. All right, I could go on in this vein, all right, but what have I described? Modern industrial agriculture, all right? So, if we wanted to design a pathogenic system that had a lot of inefficiencies and wastes in it, we couldn't design a better system than we already have. All right, we're back to feeding the world. So the first thing is this spoilage, this food spoilage. Now, in the developed world, it spoils or it doesn't get eaten because we don't want anything with blemish. We have sell-by dates. We throw perfectly good food away all the time, like I've already discussed. In the developed world, the losses are due to spoilage and transportation and socio-political things. The warlord won't let the truck cross, without a kickback or something. So they hold them hostage. Those sorts of things. Even religious issues. India, half of the grain that gets exported to India gets eaten by sacred rats. That's not a food production problem. Okay? And I'm not trying to speak against India. I'm just trying to explain when everybody sits around and, oh no, how are we going to eat? There's plenty of food. There's absolutely plenty of food. Now, the other thing that happens is that there is a tremendous amount of land that's not being utilized. I don't know how many acres of lawn there are in Canada, but in the U.S., there are 36 million acres of lawn. I see a little thing over there that says lawns in America use more, what does it say, resources than all of agriculture put together. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know where lawns came from? They came from Britain, you know, for royalty. The whole idea of a lawn with British loyalty, and you know, here I am in America, Canada. But it came about by dukes and nobles and the royalty. I mean, when I say royalty, I mean all of royalty, you know, all the lords and dukes. Was because it was a way for them to show that they could separate themselves from the arcane, mundane, agrarian, groveling dirt of kitchen gardens that the peasants relied on to live. And so it was an aristocracy. It was a way to show I am above this dependency on the soil. So I have this expansive lawn, you know, and I can get my food out here elsewhere. So it was a sign of elitism and royalty. I mean, we've got 36 million acres of lawn. We have 36 million acres, the same amount, growing food and housing recreational horses. That's 72 million acres. That's enough to feed the entire country without a single farm. So imagine if we actually had an edible landscape program. You know, where instead of just growing ornamentals, and I like flowers, I really like edible flowers, but anyway, there's nothing wrong with flowers, but do we really have to only have flowers? Can't we have a few pear trees and apple trees and things lining the streets? I mean, it doesn't take any more nutrient, any more fertility to grow a pear tree than just a flowering, you know, Bartlett pear that doesn't do anything but make flowers. And, you know, on our college campuses, my goodness, the expansive grounds. See, our problem is that we give Greenie Awards to institutional dining services for being so progressive thinking that they separate out their, you know, post-consumer waste stream from the kitchen, put it in separate barrels or bins, and put it on a diesel truck to take it 10 miles away to the composting facility so it can be composted, and we can re-import it and put it on the azaleas and the, you know, rose bushes around, and we're real green. That's not green at all. That's continuing to look at the entire ecological womb as being fundamentally segregated. And nature is integrated as opposed to segregated. So green would be, in our colleges, high schools, institutions, would be putting a chicken house right up next to the back door of the dining services, so the kitchen scraps come right out into the chickens eat those, lay eggs. Now we don't have to have egg factories, we don't have to transport them, we don't have to transport the kitchen scraps anywhere. They just get put in, and then they come back in as eggs, and now we complete the cycle, and nothing has to go on a diesel truck anywhere. And that is fundamentally an integrated system. In fact, if every kitchen in the US and Canada, in fact, not even every one, if only a third of all the kitchens in the US and Canada integrated enough chickens to eat their scraps, there would not be an industrial egg industry in either country. Can you imagine? You know, but what we do is, you know, we get guilt-assuagement by running out and picketing factory farming, and we want legislation against this factory farming and all these dirty, filthy factory farming. What we need to do is throw out the parakeets and the boa constrictor and the gerbil and put in a couple of chickens. You know, they're far more interesting, you know, and more productive. And don't worry about local ordinances. I don't know if it's illegal or not. Doesn't matter. Just do it. What are they going to do? Throw everybody in the jail? So an integrated system. And when you begin, I mean, just to imagine beginning to have an integrated food system, you begin to realize just how much abandoned, unused acreage there is, from the little 3-foot strip between, you know, the urban, you know, condominium and the sidewalk to the expansive, you know, University Alberta. What's the university here? University of Alberta. I mean, they got big batwing mowers, right? I mean, to the medians of the interstates. I mean, why can't we be growing edible food down the interstate, running chicken shelters, you know, down the interstate? I mean, you go to Italy, and you know the big clover leaves on the expressways. They're not mowing them with big batwing mowers or anything. They've got them sectioned off, and I don't know how they choose who does this. I don't know if it's by lottery, by bribe, or by political concession, or by, you know, familial tree or whatever. But anyway, they got these divided into like little quarter-acre places, and in the weekend, people ride their bikes out. And they spend the weekend at their garden. They got a little shack there, tools in it. They got a couple of hammocks and beds, you know. They kind of got a little shanty there set up, like a little homesteads deal. And they garden all weekend, and then they bike back in Sunday afternoon, all laden down with their produce and vegetables for them to eat and to share with neighbors and things. And this is how they take care of their expressway medians and on-ramps and off-ramps. I mean, isn't that cool? I mean, that's really cool. I mean, and I was down in Mexico. They don't mow their interstates with batwing mowers. They, again, divvy out every so many yards or meters or whatever. God, I always think I Canada. They divvy this out, certain sections, and you go down there in the afternoon, drive down the expressway, and every so often there's a tethered cow, and they're milk cows. And the guys come out, and they take their milk cow in, they milk it, bring it back, and it mows the edge of the interstates. Of course, you know, they learn to put the tether so the cow can't go quite onto the pavement, but what a wonderful use. Tamaulipas, you know, the city park doesn't mow their city park. They have 8 farmers with 8 dairy cows. And they move them around the park, and they mow the park. You know, it makes it real exciting for pickup baseball games and stuff, you know, which is first and second and third base. But anyway, you know, you can really slide in too, you know. It makes it... But, you know, we in the West, we have become sophisticated beyond commonsensical on these things, haven't we? We've become so, I don't know, so sophisticated and civilized after all. That when somebody comes along with these kinds of things that were the way civilizations lived and the way people ate for millennia, you know, we're accused of being some sort of a, you know, Neanderthal barbaric throwback, you know, to some, you know, caveman time, rather than actually being a progressive thinker that is thinking about integration, low carbon footprint, losing hydrologic cycles. Yeah, I mean, hydrologic cycles, my goodness, we should be putting cisterns next to all of our municipal buildings to catch the runoff so there's no sewage, and then we can hook that up with all of our exercise and fitness gyms with our bicycles on pumps to pump the cistern water back up on the roof that has 12 inches of soil and perlite on it to grow watermelons and squash and bramble fruits that all cascade off the edges. So you're in there running your treadmill, you reach out and grab a cucumber, you know, and eat it. And now we don't have to have a sewer system. We don't have to have, you know, we don't have to have air conditioning. It cools the place. So we don't have to have so much heat. And we're actually doing something productive with our time instead of just sitting there, you know, burning off calories. You know, has any civilization ever had to expend so much energy just on fitness doing nothing? And I never got into these walkathons. What was a walkathon? You know, hey, You want to do a walkathon? Come out to my house. I'll pay you $1 to put in a post hole, all right? I mean, if you really want to do something for exercise and for the benefit of people, you know, I'll let you pick rocks. You know, I got a wall you can build right here. Slather on some concrete. We'll build a terrace retaining wall. You know, and it faces south, and we can catch the water that comes off the hoop house and make a thermal mass of rocks. And you know, we're growing fig trees in Virginia, which you're not supposed to be able to grow fig trees. We had our first figs this year by using southern exposure thermal facing mass. We even put floating rafts in the pond. You know, we've got ponds, and you can take 6-inch PVC and make floating rafts, put 12 inches of compost on it, and you can grow vegetables in the middle of a pond. And the roots can either get wet or stay dry. They get to pick however they want to do. They can think it over and decide how wet they want their feet to be. But these rafts float in the pond. The water in the pond acts as thermal mass to create consistent ambient temperature that vegetables like. In order for bugs to get to it, the fish get them before they get to the floating island ponds, and you just push it out and pull it back when you want to work on it, and the water reflects the sunlight into underneath the leaves, so the stomata underneath and on top get to work, so the plants grow twice as fast because they're getting radiant solar energy underside and top side. So why why is this so difficult? This is not rocket science. I just marvel at these supposed fixes that we come up with, and the truth is that a lot of fixes are pretty simple. I mean, if you catch all your own rainwater that hits your roof and put it in a cistern, put a living roof complete with a beehive on your roof. Replumb your house to convert gray water into your toilet. That cuts your water use in half. Right? And then put a solarium on the south side, and that can be something as simple as web wire cattle panels and plastic. All right? I mean, if we took a 10% of the petroleum used to transport mescaline mix from California to Edmonton in the wintertime and took that amount of diesel fuel to put solariums on the south side of all of our buildings in Edmonton, suddenly we'd cut our fuel use by 30%, and we'd have season extension, grow our own mescaline mix, shut down the trucks, shut down the petroleum. See, the problem is not that we don't have energy. The problem is that we're squandering the energy. The problem is not that we're lazy and not doing things. The problem is that we're creatively expending our energy and time and exploiting our resources on squandering things. It's like Stan Parsons, the founder of Ranching for Profit School, says we've become extremely proficient at hitting the bullseye of the wrong target. Our problem is not that we're lazy, our problem is that we're busy about the wrong things. So, you know, if you just do a complete water cycle, a gray water recharge, and a southern facing solarium and a living roof, if that was all that was done on every building, every lot in Edmonton, think what a difference it would be. And that's not high tech. I mean, that's just some plumbing and some plastic and a tank and a little pump. You know, if you really want to be progressive, you know, you can hook the pump up to your exercise bike. Pump the water up. You know. Put little cisterns up in the attic, you know, so all your water just gravity feeds. You pump, you exercise on your bicycle 15 minutes a day to pump all the water up into your cistern, and everything gravity feeds from there. You know, now we don't have to put in a sewer system, we don't have to put in a wastewater system, we don't have to do any of this stuff. Yeah. And this is low tech. It's not, and I'm not opposed to solar panel. Trust me, I'm not opposed to anything high tech. But I think sometimes we get, you know, as sophisticated, you know, developed country people, we get enamored of high tech and sophisticated things that, you know, inverters and relay systems and all. Oh man, you know. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I'm just old country boy, you know, there are some really easy things that can be done that aren't sophisticated. In fact, you know, I'm looking for the first company, you know, and some entrepreneur needs to start a turnkey company. Come to your house, knock on your door, and for $30,000, we will turn you into a biosphere right here, you know, like I've just described. You all go on to work this morning. When you come back this evening, we'll have it all set up. The solarium, the cistern, the pump, the living roof, the whole deal, you know, the gray water return. It's all, and you just, and you turn your house, instead of being you know, a resource sucker in the community, it becomes a resource, you know, asset in the community. All right. So integrated. Oh my, we're going over time. So the question is can we feed the world? I hope you can see that there are lots of ways that we're not exploiting, we're not using, and when I say exploit, I mean in a good way. We're not leveraging. All right, let's not use the word exploit. It's leveraging. All right, we're not leveraging land. We're not leveraging knowledge. We're not leveraging space. We're not leveraging technique. You know, in the fall, I'm sure it's this way here in Edmonton. About a week or two, about 1 week before frost. You grow tomatoes up here, don't you? Yeah. About 1 week before frost, all the tomatoes talk and say, let's all ripen this week. Do they do that up here too? Yeah, yeah. You know? And the thing is, you're right at the end of the season and you're pooped, right? And suddenly, bucket loads of tomatoes come in. The farmer's market inundated with tomatoes. Well, what happens then is that half of those tomatoes never get used because people aren't buying them. They're tired of tomatoes. Late in the season, they're ready for some, you know, some salsify and some acorn squash and butternut, right? And you know, the potatoes are coming in now, and so the tomatoes are old stuff, you know, and so if we would just push ourselves a little bit with some domestic culinary intelligence and expertise, and take that pile of tomatoes late in the season that the bounty wants to dump in our lap, and not go on the Caribbean cruise that week, you know, not go to Disney World that week, all right, and say we're going to stay home and we're going to take those farmers at the farmers market and say we'll take those late season, maybe a little bit blemished tomatoes by the bushel, and we're going to take the week and we're going to can, you know. But so many farmers markets are basically used as a social interaction guilt assuagement place for nibblers, you know. And, I mean, people aren't really buying their food there. If they were really buying their food, the whole place would be sold out in 35 minutes. But they can't buy a grocery bag full of things because all they can buy is enough to carry in one hand because they got Fifi on the leash on the other hand, you know. And they got to walk around and, you know, my dog meet your dog and sniff your, you know, and it's a social deal. It's this, I participated in the local food system, you know, with a little you know, baby food jar size of plum preserve, you know. See, I participated in the local food system. Here, kiddies, let's go to McDonald's for lunch, you know. And we've got to get, as a culture and a society, we've got to begin truly integrating our lives as a masseuse of this ecological womb upon which we're utterly and completely dependent, and participate in the ecology and the food system and the climate that we're in. And if we do that, I have no idea how much food could be produced, but it could be, you know, we can't even imagine how much it could be. Okay, enough of that. Let's go to some questions. What do you think?
There's a microphone over here. If anybody would like to step up over here and use the microphone to address it so other people can hear the question being addressed.
Don't be bashful. We're all friends here. Unless there's a Monsanto involved. Yeah, don't be bashful. Just come right on.
Hi, so good to hear you talking and be here with all my friends. Thanks everybody for coming. I loved the title. Unfortunately, I can't say I've read it, but the book you wrote, Everything I Want to Do Is Illegal.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the low input solutions you have are awesome, but we can't do gray water here because it's against the law. We can't just change all the plumbing. We can't just put a living room. How do we deal with the lawmakers?
Yeah, those are tough questions. Well, you know, if you've read me at all, you know that I'm a believer in civil disobedience. There are few things as powerful as passionate righteousness, and so that, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, look, you have a friend that's a plumber. Just come in and switch your system around. Who's going to know? I mean, it's not like these bureaucrats come running around looking at your house, right? So you know, what they don't know won't hurt them, and it's cool. All right. So that's one thing. And then beyond that, there are very creative ways to kind of get over and around and under things. I'll give you an example. Right now, we need an intern housing. Well, we're in an agriculture zone, which the land preservationists have so narrowly defined as production agriculture that you can't do anything with it. I mean, besides grow commodity, low margin. Now, you can put on a Tyson confinement, you know, chicken house the size of 2 football fields and stink up the neighborhood. But perish the thought that you would put in, you know, a little cottage for agritourism or a woodworking shop that's prohibited. You know, a woodworking shop is manufacturing. We can't have manufacturing on farmland. I mean, that's what we do. You know? I mean, my view is what better place to put the woodworking shop than next to the trees? What do I know? So we needed to build this new intern housing facility. Well, turns out that our county has 5 building code exemptions. All right? One is for an agricultural accessory building, like a shed. So I have a friend, for example, when he bought his farm, first thing he did was go around and build a bunch of sheds around. Now, you can finish them off as houses later on, but the point is to get your buildings up, get your sheds up, see, and get a roof up there, see. Then once the structure's there, nobody looks in. So one is an agriculture accessory building, like a farm shop. Number 2 is if it's on a chassis, like an RV, or if it's, you know, movable, it's on a chassis. Right? Number 3, a tree house. Swiss Family Robinson. Interestingly, it doesn't say that all 4 corners have to be in the tree. So you can put 1 corner in the tree, 3 stilts, you got a tree house. Number 4, if it floats, houseboat. So I came this close a couple years ago to buying a couple houseboats and putting them in our pond. Okay? And number 5 is a hunting camp. So we're building the hunting camp. But it doesn't say what you have to hunt. So we're building the polyphase hunting camp. We're hunting for the truth.
And here I was going to ask you how the interns feel about living above the wood shop.
Here's the thing. This community right here, I mean, there's enough people right here. If all of you got together and went down to a council meeting, or whatever you know, your deal is, you'd have some power. You'd have some clout, all right? Because there are actually very few people who make these decisions for us. The political process is unbelievably low populated. So if you go in there with a handful of people, it's amazing. You can get, chicken ordinances changed. You can get all sorts of... Are chickens legal in Edmonton? No.
It's an issue
All
right now.
Well, that's another one that I would just do anyway. They were illegal in New York City for a long time until the New York Times did a story on the thousands of people in New York that had 2 or 3 chickens in their apartments. I mean, these were not people with land. These were people that, like I said, were getting rid of the parakeet cage and the aquarium and the gerbil and putting in chickens. And the whole climate changed pretty quickly after they realized, well, this is happening anyway. And so that's one that I would certainly push forward with without asking permission. It's a lot easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yes.
And the power of righteous expression articulated viscerally is an object lesson that's hard to define. So I encourage people, you can't win them all today. Don't do them all today. But what's the worst going to happen? Somebody will come around and tell you, you shouldn't have done that. And then it becomes I can tell you any of these issues, people are for you. Intuitively, we understand. Intuitively, as far lost as our culture is, the only people that don't like it are the industrial ag people. They're the only people who don't like it because they don't want competition. What I've described here of an integrated, self-reliant food system, they are scared to death of because it's freedom. It's true food security and freedom. And it starts chipping away at their market. Remember, supermarkets were not even here in 1945. The first supermarket was in 1946. And we've got this notion of, what would we do without supermarkets? What would we do? We'd go out to our garden and eat. We'd get our canners out. We'd get our fruit leather and our solar dehydrator and my goodness, we do what Grandma did. But we do it with all this cool high-tech bread bakers and sausage stuffers and refrigeration and stainless steel and indoor plumbing. I mean, you actually wash up when you're done. You wouldn't have to wear a hoop skirt and burn up when you hit the fireplace. I mean, we got all sorts of cool stuff. All right, other questions?
Hi, thanks for coming.
Yes.
You'll have to excuse my ignorance on it, but if you were to build a solarium and change everything, your plumbing to gray water and everything like that, build a big cistern, how would that work in the winter time when instead of constant rain, there's just a big snowfall that sits on top of your roof?
Yeah, well, every place has its asset and its liability, okay? And so a solarium, the farther north you go, the more beneficial it is. And so, what you do, I mean, I can't give you every detail, but you have your solarium, and here, you would probably want to double glaze it, or use Lexan, or one of these, expensive vacuum, greenhouse stuff, shear, okay? So you're going to put a little more money into it than we would, all right? But, and then you're going to take black 55-gallon drums, set them all up against the wall, paint them black. That'll be a heat sink, all right? And the point is, look, I was in Minneapolis recently doing a seminar, ran into a family there that does, in Minneapolis, I know that's not Edmonton, but it's not that far, okay? And I met a couple in the middle of the city that was doing a produce CSA from November 1st to March 1st in Minneapolis. Here's what they did. This is cool. They had a garage, okay, that had a southern wall. And you know what we're finding, what all the research now, I mean, we're learning some really cool, thermal stuff now with all of our computers and techniques. And we now know that actually a solarium or a passive solar face works a lot better if the north is simply a straight insulated wall than if it's a completed tunnel. Because you lose way more heat out the non-sun solar north side than you gain from having any plastic there. All right, so they had a garage. They extra insulated the wall, and they put a lean-to greenhouse on it. But before they put the greenhouse up, they got a backhoe in and dug down 4 feet and put in 4 feet of gravel with leaky pipe running through it. You know, like drainage, you know, this drainage pipe, okay? Coiled up running through it. So this gravel base gave a heat sink, and so then they put the greenhouse on, the lean-to, and then they ran just a regular wood stove, you know, flue pipe, all right? Up and then right through the gable where the heat would rise, okay, because heat rises. We know that now. We're very intelligent. We know that heat rises. All right. So they put this black painted across using a thermocouple with a little squirrel's cage fan. They could either run it backwards or forwards. So when there was 70 degrees up here in the gable, it sucked the hot air down into the gravel pit, and when it was below 70, it turned off and let that heat just percolate up and rise. And so they were growing carrots and beets and mesclun mix and all spinach and arugula, you know, all of your cool season stuff. All right, yeah, a bunch of those. And they were growing them, and they actually had them in split pipes, like culverts, dangling, and they adjusted the angle for the sun through the winter as the azimuth of the sun moves. All right, and they would adjust them for maximum, you know, sunlight on these essentially gutters, so they could stagger these things in. The stuff that was more shade tolerant was in the bottom, the stuff that was more light was in the top. And they were able to run like a 20-family CSA out of a little thing that was no bigger than from that wall to this wall on the edge of their garage in the middle of winter in Minneapolis with virtually no supplemental heat. This is cool stuff, all right? This is very cool stuff. And then, of course, if you want to add an animal component, you know, you could put rabbits in there, and their ears were radiators, you know, and they, you know, rabbits will warm it, and you can put a traum wall, like I was talking about with, you know, with barrels, and, you know, there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do. So these are very complex systems, but what they do is they simply take the best of the information we know and simply couple it with what we see nature do. And voila, you got it. Okay? Other questions?
Any other questions? Come on. Use this map while it's here. So one of the questions I asked Joel when we were driving over here was that, you know, a lot of us have seen his farm on YouTube or on DVDs, and I asked him, as most of us know, farmers up here that work the land during the summer and the fall, and then have to go and work in the oil field to pay for their hobby, which is farming. So I asked him whether his farm was, you know, succeeded without him going out to make supplemental money by going on speaking tours, writing books, and things like that. And his answer was,
okay. The answer was that we didn't do anything educationally from an income educational thing for the first 10 years at all. Teresa and I went to the farm September 24, 1982. So we just celebrated our 30-year anniversary of non-farm. What happened was that we stand on the shoulders of giants. Dad and Mom had worked off the farm to pay for it. Okay, so we had paid for land, but it was just sitting there. It was it was not a going concern. And so Teresa and I were able to save up enough money working off the farm to live for 1 year. And I fully expected to go back, off the farm to work. But what happened was, as soon as I quit that off-farm job, September 24, 1982, the big day. It's a big day, okay? Because everybody thought I was the biggest fool in the world, so I wanted to remember the day. It was a big deal. What happened was our expenses plummeted. I mean, we put gas in the car maybe once a month. We drove a $50 car. Okay? You know, it was 20 years old when we bought it. We took our honeymoon in it, you know, an old 65 Dodge Dart. You know, and we were married for 20 years before we spent a total of $10,000 on automobiles. Okay? So I always say, you know, the reason for our success is because I married a wife more frugal than I am. You know, she's what you call an easy keeper. You don't want a hard keeper. You know, all right. So you know, she's more frugal than I am, and so you know, we grew all of our own food. I always said if we could figure out how to grow toilet paper and Kleenex, we could pull the plug on society. I haven't gotten the corn cob catalog pages yet. That's a little bit rough, but anyway, we grew all of our own food. We had our own utility. We lived in we made an apartment, and it was as illegal as sin. But we finished off an apartment in the attic of our farmhouse. Mom and Dad were downstairs. We lived in an apartment upstairs. And it was we put in the kitchen, all stuff is illegal as sin. We didn't get a building permit. We didn't get, we wired it. We put in a false ceiling, and we just, you know, the plumbing wasn't right, but it worked fine. You know, I mean, our sink drained down the stink pipe to the toilet. Okay, I'm sure that was wrong, but it doesn't matter. You know, you could have called it an attic. We called it our penthouse. Is it half full or half empty? I mean, you know, you choose that, right? And so we were up there, and you know, we lived on, oh goodness, $300 a month, and I mean, we didn't go anywhere. We didn't have expensive, you know, taste. We didn't buy clothes except at the, you know, thrift store or the, you know, Goodwill or whatever. And what we found was that when we came home full time, not only did we cut our expenses by 80%, because we didn't have to drive anywhere or get good clothes or wash clothes for that matter. But we were there for everything. Suddenly there wasn't any slip. We were there for every calf that was born. We were there when the weeds really needed to be pulled in the garden. You know what I'm saying? We weren't just putting out crises, because when we were working out, I was a reporter at the newspaper, and every time I drove away from the farm, my mind was full of all the things that weren't getting done at the farm. And when I was at the farm, my mind was full of all the things I had to do to please my boss at work. And so you live in this real uncomfortable world between your heart and your reality. Everybody? Yes. Yeah. And that's what happens. So that's why I'm so adamant that for people who want to follow their heart and have a passion for unplugging from their Dilbert cubicle for the, you know, at the end of the expressway, whatever. I always tell them, do it. What's the worst that can happen? You run out of money in a year or two, and you go back working somewhere. The liberating thing for me was, in my, you know, being a journalist, I was always, of course, I was aware of what was going on and all that. And what I realized was, everybody would want me to work for them. Because I was willing to do anything. I wasn't one of these guys that went to college and said, well, that's below me. I'm happy to run a chainsaw, a shovel, push mud, okay? It's fine, all right? And I also am not the dumbest guy in the block. So I thought, well, you know, for somebody that wants somebody to just do brawn stuff, maybe they wouldn't mind having brains along with it. Maybe that helps sometimes. And I realized, you know, I'd be very happy to go wash dishes in a restaurant. You know, kind of one of the lowest jobs in our socioeconomic system. But I realized, you know what? I'll bet you if I went and washed dishes, because there's always one ad for dishwashers, right? Always, right? I'll bet you that if I went and started washing dishes in the back room of a restaurant, in 6 months, I'd be a manager. And that's not proud, that's just the bad shape of the dependability, responsibility, innovativeness, and get-with-itism of our culture. You know, we're a gimme, victimized, excuse-mongering culture. And you're like us. And so, you know, every business person is looking for somebody whose first question is not about liability insurance and retirement benefits. You know, where's the person that'll come in and say, just show me what to do? You know, we run an intern program. And we have this questionnaire. And one of the questions, you know, we're in pasture-based livestock, and we do a lot of slaughtering at our place. And so one of our questions, which is pretty unique to us as opposed to, say, a produce operation or something like that, is, you know, how do you feel about killing animals? Because, you know, if you're going to be an intern where we are, you're going to be doing that. We don't actually have a correct answer, you know, in our minds, except a couple of years ago we had the correct answer. I mean, you know, people always, they had, depending on their talents as a writer or a communicator, you know, they had these about, you know, well, it's okay, I've never done it, but if you're going to eat it, that's okay, you know, all these things, trying to explain that they're not Bambi-ited. But anyway, we finally got the right answer from one of the applicants. Her answer was very short. It just said, just show me how. You know, we took her. That's the kind of person, we're not looking at, you hire people, right? I mean, what you want is just somebody, I don't need a debate. I just want somebody that will show up on time, that's not watching the clock at 5 o'clock, that doesn't grouse about staying an extra 10 minutes, that just works their buns off all day and loves it and smiles and is happy and just a joy to be around. Every employer, every business person, everybody's looking for that kind of person. And if you are that kind of person, you can find work. And when I realized that, to me, that took off those golden chains of that paycheck. Because I realized, you know, if we run out of money, I'm willing to do anything. We never ran out of money. It was close. Really close. But we stayed with it, and you know, as it's happened, here we are. So it's been an exciting ride. And now, today, that little farm, we leased 7 pieces of property. We're running almost 1,000 head of cattle. We employ 20 people full-time, and have farm sales of right at $2 million a year. It's not a small operation. We've been very blessed. We still don't have a marketing plan. We still don't have sales targets. We want it to be simply a spontaneous outgrowth of faithfulness. That's it. That's all. And if it gets bigger, that's fine. If it gets smaller, that's fine, because there's a lot of ways to grow besides sales. And so it is whatever it is. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask you about, I watched one of your videos about chickens and chicken tractors.
This will be the last question, by the way.
And you do rotational grazing. So you do chickens and then you do cattle, and do you follow that with pigs or any other?
Oh, the whole pasture choreography?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's an involved question. Let me do it pretty quickly here as fast as I can. First of all, the cows are moved every day. All right? At roughly 4 o'clock. And so they're given a very small paddock for one day's meal. So it might be 500 head on 2 acres for the day. All right? And this is called mob stocking, herbivorous, solar conversion, lignified carbon sequestration, fertilization. And it's intended to mimic the wild herds as they're moved by predation, either two-legged or four-legged predation across an area. Now, every farm has its centerpiece enterprise. Ours is the pastured broiler. So, that's not our largest moneymaker, but it's kind of our centerpiece. It's been kind of our claim to fame, whatever. So, when the grass gets too long for them, we bring the cows in ahead of them to graze it down because the chickens like short, tender, succulent, just growing grass, little shoots, all right? A lot of reasons. I mean, you graze around them, and then the foxes are exposed, and the hawks pick up the foxes. There's a lot of dynamics going on here. So we use the cows strategically to graze around the chickens when necessary. So the chickens are moving across, the cows come as necessary. Otherwise, the cows are over doing their thing. Now, behind the cows come the eggmobiles. And the eggmobiles are portable hen houses with several hundred layers in them that free range out, scratch through the cow patties, and eat the exposed grasshoppers and crickets and bugs that are now exposed because the cows grazed. So wherever the cows are, the chickens, the layers are roughly 3 days behind them. Now, that's the eggmobiles. We also run the Millennium Feather Net for eggmobiles. And the Millennium Feather Net is a land-intensive system. The eggmobiles are land-extensive. The chickens free range out, and they can basically go anywhere. The benefit of that is that the chickens, can go wherever they want to, and they pick up more off the land. The negative of it is sometimes they just, the chicken's not the biggest brain critter in the world, and sometimes they wander off and don't come back. So there's there's an asset and a liability. The land intensive, which is an electrified net, 1/4 acre with 1,000 layers in it, with a A-frame skid structure that we move every 3 days. That's a more land-intensive controlled system, much more like the broilers. When the grass gets long, the cows come in and graze. And all these systems, of course, the cows can come in and be separated by electric fence without damaging the very light chicken infrastructure. So it's that. The pigs are essentially on their own pig pastures and acorn finishing glens, except when they are making the pigerator compost. And the way that works is, when we feed hay in sheds, just open-sided sheds, or you could have one wall if you wanted to have a little bit of a windbreak. But open sheds, the cows are dropping 50 pounds of material out their back end every day. It's very gooey and highly soluble and volatile. If it gets dry, it vaporizes. If it gets wet, it goes in the groundwater. So we want to protect the dormant soil in the wintertime from receiving this nutrient load because it just leaches away by spring green-up. So these awnings are simply a roof to protect it, and then we use wood chips or sawdust or peanut hulls or leaves or junk hay, or you can use straw, whatever, but a carbonaceous diaper as a bedding to absorb carbonaceously these highly volatile nutrients. So the nitrogen actually bonds to the carbon atom. You have a molecular stability, all right? This bedding then builds up 3 feet, 4 feet. The feeder gate is on a pulley, like curtains on a confinement house, that we can just wind up so that the hay boxes just continue to rise as the bedding rises. And we put in the bedding. And as we put in the bedding, we put corn in there. The corn, of course, ferments because the cows are tromping out the oxygen, so it's anaerobic bedding pack. And so you have this impregnated bedding pack with all this fermented corn in it. So when the cows come out in the spring to begin grazing, then we put the pigs in there. I don't know if you ever noticed, but all pigs have a sign on their nose that says, or their forehead that says, "We'll work for corn." The pigs then seek the fermented corn, and in the process, piggerate, aerobic, like AE, right? Okay? And piggerate this and inject oxygen and turn this anaerobic bedding pack into a fluffy aerobic compost pile. So the pigs do all the work, and suddenly the profit potential becomes size neutral because we don't have to recapitalize the infrastructure that rots, rusts, and depreciates. All right? And so that's how the animals are incorporated symbiotically. And of course, then we have tall tunnels, hoop structures that the layers go into in the wintertime on deep bedding, with rabbits up above, and pigs on the floor. Chickens go up on a mezzanine. You've got pigs, rabbits, chickens, and they're all in there using vertical space with concrete sidewalks with 10-inch strips in between them so that we can easily clean it out. The pigs can't dig to China. We can easily clean it out, and then we plant vegetables in there down the 10-inch strips with drip irrigation tape and fill those with melons and squashes and stuff and corn during the summertime. The concrete acts as a thermal mass to hold ambient temperature consistent so the vegetables do better. There's no weeding, and the drip tape runs right down the 10-inch strip. So you get essentially a deep-bedded, concrete-floored, multi-speciated winter structure along with a spring, summer, fall produce season extender on the other parts of the season. So the idea is to always think stacking, synergy, symbiosis, multi-speciation, diversity, and all those things that we pluck simply by studying nature.
Thank you.
Now may all of your carrots grow long and straight. May your radishes be large and not pithy. May the coyotes be struck blind at your pastured chickens. And may the regulators just stay at Dunkin' Donuts and not come and visit you. May the rain fall gently on your fields, the wind be always at your back, and your children rise up and call you blessed, and may we all make the world a better place than we found it. Thank you so much.
But I wanted to give Joel a gift from the local community league here, a Ritchie Community League, that donated the hall for free. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I'm just going to say a few words here, and then we're going to shut down. Joel is going to be in Calgary for 3 days. And in March is 20th, 21st, and 22nd, part of Verge Permaculture. Rob has some flyers over here that Joel has in his hands.
I'll put them on the book side.
Perfect, yes. And if anybody would like to have Joel... Yes, you are. Thank you very much. If anybody would like to have their book signed out by Joel, unfortunately I don't have his latest book here because I was purchasing through his previous bookseller, which was Chelsea Green. So thank you all very much for coming out, and I hope you all enjoyed something. There are some other groups from permaculture along the side here. Please go and visit them, chat with them. We do have a growing network of permaculturists in Edmonton who have gone out to get their permaculture design course. There are some people that are actually teaching courses. I know that Anita is doing one in the fall. Michael's doing one soon. You can find out if you would like to do some more work personally on permaculture and go out there and change the world. Thank you.